again, political leaders can capitalize that, and they can hijack that desire for their own purposes. And if you don't have the bulwark of religion, in a sense, then they become absolute. And I think Nietzsche wrote about that, and many people worried about that. When you saw that separation, when science started becoming what science is today, a lot of very prescient thinkers predicted that we might end up in something like this. Yeah. Very, very large, like secular religions, the overtaking of what was formerly religious power by the political, and it's something that you definitely described there. I know we're coming up on a little bit of time. I really feel like this is like the kind of like rabbit hole stuff that is also extremely practical and extremely relevant to our reality that we live today. I mean, I could spend hours talking about this stuff. I just love your perspective here on purpose and on maybe a couple more questions for you. I've been dealing lately with the issue of purpose externalities. Okay, so a purposeful activity can be lived as purposeful by someone, but also impose costs or damage other people. Okay, I mean, I always think, like, for me, like, the Nazis were living a life of purpose. In their moral universe, they are rescuing the Aryan nation. They're willing to die for it. It's a clear purpose. They are sacrificing themselves for the cause. They're living with purpose, but look at all the potential for purpose that they eliminated as a version of that. So that's a version in economics. There's the concept of externalities. When, okay, your company is making $2 billion of profit, but that's only because the state has to clean up its mess and give it a $5 billion. So it's really like a net negative. So there should almost be a principle of, at the very least, in pop culture, another classic example of this is, I don't know if you saw the show Breaking Bad, but with Walter White, right? And that's the classic moral dilemma there is that, okay, in order to sort of do what's right for his family, he believes he has this cancer and he's going to die. Well, look at the trail of destruction that he creates around. But it's really to rescue his children that are vulnerable and that have special needs and so forth. Yeah. But in order to rescue 2 lives, it's high purpose. But look at all the trail of the damage that he got. We would almost need a kind of a principle where when you follow your purpose, you should almost not at least be like neutral with respect to the rest of humanity. I mean, if you could contribute to the rest of humanity, that's great. That's very difficult to do. But at the very least, a kind of a silver rule of like, don't harm others. At least.
Well, it's interesting because Breaking Bad is a great example. I mean, so well written too. It's a great example of an objective hierarchy of goods, which is that, Walter White makes a mistake. Basically, he misunderstands how the universe works, and therefore he misaligns himself. He says, well, I'm willing to do these horrible things in order to save my family. But in the end, he loses it all, right? Because he misunderstands what is the highest good and how the world actually lays itself out. It's actually a really good example of understanding the problem misalignment. And so I think that, how can I say this? It's like when we throw ourselves into certain purposes, those purposes have to be set into higher purposes. Even if you can't explain it, if you can't see it explicitly, you should at least be able to understand it intuitively that, if I have the purpose of making a lot of money, it's like that is not a sufficient purpose, right? Because I have to live with other people and I can ruin all my relationships by trying to make huge amounts of money, and then I will be miserable. It's an objective thing, right? It's like my purpose can be like, I want to take as much heroin as possible, and I'll get like huge amounts of satisfaction for a very short time, and then on the longer arc, then it'll swallow me up. And so the virtue hierarchy that we have in the West is an objective one. Like it's not if you follow this hierarchy, you will have the longest possible sense of satisfaction and a purpose. But if you misalign it, then you will get high levels of purpose, but that will ultimately come to get you. Like a good example, and I hate to
if it's not embedded in a higher purpose.
Exactly. Like a good example that I've seen recently, and I hate to pick on him because he's an amazing guy. Like I saw an interview with Mike Tyson where Mike Tyson was talking about the fact that he is suffering because all he is a rabid dog out to like destroy. Like that is what he set himself out to do. And now, because his body is failing him, he is hopeless. And it's like, that's something to learn from because he is amazing. I mean, he's an astounding athlete.
You know the story of how what healed him mentally? So his hands were his instrument of mass destruction, right? That he was a boxer. And for a very long time, he's, as a boxer and as that rabid dog expressed to his hands, the hands had all of that destructive energy in them. And he said that when he started healing was right around the time that he started playing with pigeons with his hands.
Right.
And it's almost turning this blunt instrument of destruction into with something very, very delicate, like the pigeons allowed him to start healing. But I mean, you know, that challenge of like seeing yourself as an identity, as the destructor, that could come back. Even after you've healed yourself, it could come back. But I found it very interesting how turning the instrument of, let's call it of war, into an instrument of peace itself, that is what created a lot of the psychological healing for him.
Yeah, that's amazing. And I think that in some ways, like for him, like as a person, that he has to do that. Like he has to be able to insert his identity into a new identity, into a higher identity, or else, you know, he will, for all intents and purposes, find himself in hell because his own desire, like we talked about this off air a little bit, like, you know, if you want something completely and you throw yourself into it, sometimes the worst thing that can happen to you is that you get it.
The curse is that you get it.
Because once you get it, you realize that it's not enough. And then you can be completely devoured by your own desire because now you've reached it and now you still have this emptiness. And so what do? You're tortured by your own desire and your own capacity to attain what you wanted. And so that's why there is this hierarchy of goods, right? It's like you want to be successful in the world, but you want to embed that into something higher, like a family, because you know you want your success to serve something, an example to your kids, a way to provide for them. But then even that's not enough. Like you keep embedding it into higher goods, then you want to be. You could see it like a lot of people who become extremely wealthy, you know, and thank God for that. They turn around, they're like, oh, okay, now I want to give. Now I want to help and do these great things. And it's like, that's exactly how it should be, right? And if you don't do that, you can really be in trouble.
I wonder what you think of this idea. I almost feel like purpose is the gift of being able to consciously direct what you contribute, whatever your achievements are, to, because if you don't do that, in the end, what there objectively is your death. And this is what happens at death. What happens at death? Nothing. No, not nothing. I always tell people, do the exercise. What actually happens at death? Let's be objective scientists about this. What actually happens to that? What happens to all your money? Oh, nothing. No, not nothing. What happens? Okay, it gets passed on to other people, right? Somebody's going to take it. No, nobody's going to take it. Okay, the state's going to take it. Somebody's going to take it. Okay, cool. What happens to your physical? Nothing. Nothing happens. No, not nothing. What happens? It's going to go back to the earth. Okay, cool. But, that's not all I am. I'm also stories and ideas. Okay, what's going to happen to your stories and ideas? Nothing. No, not nothing. Where are they going to survive? Oh, in the hearts and minds of the people who know you for a little bit. So in the end, everything is given.
Yeah,
Objectively, everything is there. Purpose is the gift of being able to direct what and who you give it to while you're still alive.
Yeah. That's great. That's a great way to think about it.
Yeah. So maybe on that note, man, I have so many more questions for you, John. Maybe we can do this again since you're so close. I would love to continue the conversation. We haven't even talked about fractal patterns. Oh my God, the rabbit hole that you threw me down when you started talking about fractal patterns in one of your interviews. I'm like, fractal, what is that? It's kind of like a leaf. It's kind of like a... So I found a documentary. I don't know if you've seen this documentary, Fractals, The Hidden Dimensions, where they talked about the work of Mandelbrot.
Yeah.
What a rabbit hole that is. But there is no way that is anything less than 30 minutes.
Oh yeah, that's another conversation.
That's another conversation. The embedded order in nature. That's man, we'll have to do that in part 2. But Jonathan, thank you so much. This was I do these interviews partly selfishly because I do them to learn, really, learn ideas from people that I look up to, people that I believe can teach me something, people whose work has inspired me and helped me. And it's always like asking these little clarifications, along the way. And I really hope that it can help people who are thinking about these issues, thinking about these ideas. And definitely this has been surprising and very, very enlightening in a lot of ways. And I could have predicted that just knowing your work and your depth of thinking. So thank you so much. And thank you for coming in and doing it in person.
Well, thank you. It was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed it.
Sounds great. All right. Thanks.